We are at this moment in time doing something which is something small in this chapel but hugely great in its link-up. We have a great hope. Things happen when the Spirit moves in his mind and heart. It's not the first time he's made the whole Catholic world do something in union with him in St. Peter's. So we ask our Blessed Lady, in whose honour we offer this holy sacrifice this evening, to come into this situation, to shield the whole world and to take it into her Immaculate Heart, for she is our Queen and sees what unites us as a planet and as a human family. That brings me to what we are doing also as a youth group today. Families are coming together. We are giving thanks to Almighty God for his providence and care as we celebrate the engagement of Valen, who will be married in February. We have blessed the ring, a very beautiful ring, and asked that it stay on that finger until death. That it be a holy and peaceful union in God. It is great to see a couple wanting each other and getting each other, even at an early age, but knowing exactly what they want. It's much easier when they get each other young and know who they want from the beginning, than having shopped around and wasted time en route. The other event that we are celebrating is actually, it's only just a year and a few days since we had a Mass at this altar with Valerie and Barry before, and that was 2 days before their marriage. It was the 4th of October that we celebrated it, on the feast of St. Francis, and we thought precisely about that feast where we see St. Clare and St. Francis in a sacred bond, not of physicity, but of divinity, anchored in the love of God, two souls which at a distance met in prayer. And that can be the beauty of a true marriage, when we have the encounter of two bodies which are actually conveying the encounter of two souls. Alas, it is not always the case. So we give thanks now that a year down the line, one of these very days, in fact it's already a day late, we will have a new addition to that family, and Valerie will be Mammy. So we shield that little child who is very much present but not quite making a noise for himself. We place him too in the Immaculate Heart of our Heavenly Mother today, asking that she will shield this child, keep it safe from anything which might damage it, and bring it unto that glory where she is awaiting us in heaven. Which brings me to the crunch, the place of glory. The Gospel is one of the shortest in the year. It is just a few verses, but it says all, and it is very suitable for what we are thinking about today. Blessed is the womb that bore you, and the breasts that you sucked. But the Lord, deflecting attention from his mother, presumably his mother would have sent some kind of ray, as it were, of telepathy to him, I don't want attention. He would have picked that up and in this way gave a teaching out of it, keeping her out of the limelight, which is where she prefers to be. Blessed rather are those who hear the word of God and keep it. Which brings me to my point, hearing. I'd like to dwell for just a few seconds on hearing. It's a very important part of the equation when it comes to relationships. Now, we will look at 3 levels of hearing. First of all, there is the physical. Have you talked to a person who's physically impaired in his hearing? A friend of mine, also you know him as well, is in that situation, a holy monk, but he is not allowed to hear confessions precisely because he's so heavy of hearing. One has to be able to hear what the person is saying, because it's very delicate, especially at that level of spiritual direction which a monk might have to handle. One has to get the whole story and also the in-between bits, the nuances, not just the outlines. So the physical comes into it. When a person has a physical problem of hearing, what does he do? Observe bit by bit what he starts to do. To avoid showing that he can't understand, what does he do? He talks. And therefore it becomes what? Not a dialogue at all, but a monologue. And how dysfunctional that is when it comes to communion of soul. It's a one-way channel and communication. It's rather like a wireless. We can't talk to a wireless, we can only listen. But there is more, and this concerns each one of us here. Our hearing physically is impaired when there's another source of conversation around us. Have you tried to listen to a conversation when a television is on in the background? Just the other day, actually, I was with close friends, and the television had not been put off even when I got in. The voice was not on, but the images were there, and they are a bit distracting, aren't they? It's not quite 100% attention when even the screen is doing something. You multiply that by also the words, and it's pretty difficult. We can't really give all our attention to more than one person at the same time. And in fact, it's a great blessing that you all came, because I was a little bit hesitant because I could see that there was going to be a clash of people at the same time. But you did come, I'm so glad you did, because the reason I was afraid was that we couldn't handle more than one person at a time. But it did work out well, didn't it? We were able to pray quietly and then we've all come together. But we only really can give all our attention to one message. I mean one message, one channel of communication at a time. We can't think about two words at the same time. And people are actually doing that. You look at what they're doing. They're sort of with you, aren't they? But only partly. They're fiddling around on the mobile, or they're at a screen. It's not 100%, and a lot of that is going on the planet right now. Divided conversations. We're sharing our attention with 2 or 3 people. The second level is that of the intelligence, the mind. Eventually the word gets through to us. There is, in your head, something going on. What happens? Through the wisdom of our Creator, that is transformed through the nervous system into nervous energy, physical energy, if you like, coming through these impulses, making this move. Then we've got physical energy coming into there. What happens then? Off it goes into the air. One molecule bumps into another and pushes it along. There's a juggling of molecules until there's no more effect. It goes too far away. But it can be picked up and magnified by our modern means electronically. So it's amplified, kept and stored, and comes out again amplified. And what happens? It comes back then into more bumping of molecules across the air into the other part of us, of which there are 2 and not 1, hinting that we should be listening twice for every 1 word. And it goes into the eardrum, which again is physical movement. The tympanum is actually a physical thing, vibrating, and it has to work, otherwise we're in trouble. And then what happens? It goes into nervous energy and goes back into the other brain, and what do we have? In reverse, a decoding of what was in the original brain, maybe years ago, if it's recorded. And even today, it's interesting what's going on. It's coming from there, down to there, into the air, and also into what John is handing there. It'll come out, we don't know where, at the other end. Isn't it interesting how truth can travel? Now, what happens there? Into the mind it goes. Now, the truth, a message, has an effect on a person. You, now, supposing you hear a big accident outside, what do? You start thinking there's somebody dying out there, and have a look what's going on. It makes us do things. A truth has an effect on what? Comes back then into impulses. The intellect transforms that into more messages, and then that's it, command. But otherwise it ingests it, takes it in, and in it goes into our mental archives. We are full of messages received, and as life goes on, the fuller we are. They say you don't actually forget anything. You just cannot always recall it. It's in storage, and sometimes something will trigger it off. E.g., a smell. A smell can trigger off something that we started years ago. Incense, or when I was a child, we used to live very small, near a brewery. Every time I smell that smell of brewing Guinness or something, it goes right back to my childhood, just like that. It's very powerful. Music. The power of music, it brings you straight back to when you first heard it, and so on. We're full of the past. So the intelligence is formed by facts, which are heard and also, through another channel, read. We have a reaction to every truth. We think that's perhaps not quite true. We are talking to the truth that's coming to us. But there is a third level of hearing, and it's this, and I want to leave it with you today because it's that bit that is missing. We listen also with the heart. What do I mean by that? Now, a mammy, or we hope a mammy to be, where is she? In there, is she Valent?
No, over here.
No, Valent, she's in there. Oh, there she is, yeah. We think of these people who eventually, in the early stages, will not be able to have any intellectual input from the child. That's why a woman has an inbuilt sensory system and knows exactly what's going on inside another person, far better than a man, because she's used to reading the signals. Reading the signals. And between a true couple, the same thing happens to some extent. You'll get a girlfriend or a wife saying to her husband, "You're like an open book to me," or she might say, "That's not what you were thinking then." She knows perfectly well. She can read the person's mind when she's got to know him. And a woman has that extra sense that a man usually hasn't got. He can cultivate it, but he has a bit of a job, because he reasons. A woman knows it. She has intuition, the famous female intuition, and it's true. Women pick things up, but it's linked with their maternity. But also, people in general have the capacity to hear each other. Each one emits a sort of cloud, an aura of goodness or badness, a positive or a negative coming out of a person. Each person is giving off, emitting bits of himself. I can smell you, sort of. You can smell me. I can get a good feeling or a bad feeling. I don't want to be with you, I want to be with you. People who are sources of healing or pain. And we know what a heavyweight is, don't we? It's not nice. They're sources of pain for all around them, and discreetly one avoids. One hears, therefore, without words. Now, that bit is kind of important. There are some professions, e.g. a psychologist, a doctor, a priest, even a teacher, a nurse, who have to sharpen that capacity of hearing with the heart. Because a lot of what is being communicated not at all with the mouth. It has to be picked up. That is an art I would ask you to cultivate, especially if you're in a relationship. It's very important. Listening, anticipating, knowing, and picking up. It's very sad when one sees a juxtaposition of two people not really in communion. Now, I just want to finish with one thing. It's what actually was supposed to happen just before you lot arrived. It didn't actually happen. Sometimes people don't keep appointments. But there was an appointment at 12 o'clock. Somebody was supposed to be coming here. A very sad case. It's anonymous, so I could just say it. Actually, I haven't even met the person, but I just know the person by phone. And the mummy, the man she was phoning, more or less it boiled down to this. My son is trying his level best to commit suicide all the time. And basically, she wanted to bring him here and see if I could get through to him. He'd be in his 20s, and it's the usual scenario. And I've had quite a few of these cases coming to me by phone or whatever, and it's pretty hard to handle because there's an acceptance now amongst young people that it's a valid alternative. So many people are doing it. And they think it all finishes there. Of course, it doesn't, because the soul just goes out of the body and finds itself. It's the same soul, it doesn't stop at all. But then it sees things for the first time, perhaps, as they are, and all the pain it's leaving behind. It doesn't know what's still beyond. And at this side of things, where we're just celebrating, as it were, one of our brethren about to reappear or appear for the first time, and we hope another one perhaps eventually this time next year, who knows if it works there for Vallon. When we think of that side of things happening, where it's starting from nothing and will never ever stop, just coming freshly into the discovery of existence, wow, I am, just realizes it's getting something from nowhere, the gift of existence, free. And the other, at the age of somewhere in the 20s, saying, I've had enough, I'm throwing it back, I don't want to be here. How sad it is, and now how prevalent. It's actually very, 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 I would say, epidemic, not only in Ireland, but throughout the world, especially in civilized countries. I just want to finish with one quote, because we forget that what we now take so lightly, because it's so easy, just a few pills, and add to it a bit of whiskey or whatever, just to hurry it up. Off you go in sleep until you wake up somewhere else. That's the classical way. But way back, when they were very much aware of what was beyond, it wasn't like that. Just compare these easy choices now with what I'm about to quote to you. This is just the last bit of what Hamlet says to himself when he's faced with the question of taking his life or not. It starts off with those famous lines, to be or not to be. That is the question. Who would fardels, that's burdens, who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveller returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. Thus, conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment with this regard their currents turn awry and lose the name of action. Before I close, I just want to quote one bit too from something much more close to us. It's this. Many things could have been avoided if that one thing I mentioned were practiced. Many suicides happen precisely because no one picked it up. Now listen to this, because you, especially young people, could find yourself in a situation where God is asking you to speak in His name. If no one is there to pick it up, off they'll go, because the signals are sometimes to be decoded. They're very discreet. And sometimes suicides are only really cries for help. The only thing is they sometimes work. Now, just with regard to this, you who are getting married or married, remember, to hear one has to get into the skin of the other. That means, what is he really thinking and feeling? If I were inside him, what would I be feeling? Just quote this now. It's a very interesting example because it's an example of two people writing together a song which actually is putting into words the pain of one of them which the other was picking up. It's when one person was in danger of losing his girlfriend, who actually did, because this didn't work. It was Paul McCartney and it didn't work. He lost her and they split up. But he was trying this one last plea through the method he had. It was writing, and John Lennon helped him and added bits. Try to see it my way. Do I have to keep on talking till I can't go on? While you see it your way, run the risk of knowing that our love may soon be gone. We can work it out. We can work it out. Now this bit is interesting. Think of what I'm saying. It goes like this. You can get it wrong and still you think but it's all right. Think of what I'm saying. We can work it out and get it straight or say good night. And he goes on, life is very short and there's no time for fussing and fighting, my friend. I've always thought that it's a crime, so I will ask you once again, try to see it my way. Only time will tell if I am right or I am wrong. When you see it your way, there's a chance that we may fall apart before too long. And on he goes, because it's very, very true. We spend our time fussing and fighting, and life has gone in one big thing after another, when the big, big thing was missed completely. Joy. Joy is destroyed by little things made too big.